Good day, this is Denver Fernandez here, and today I'll be doing a review and ranking of the new Netflix series Love, Death, and Robots. So, the first season of this series was really good, and I liked it so much. So, today I watched the second volume of the series Love, Death, and Robots. And first, we'll go to the review of the series. Actually, I like the first season very much. Though though certain themes of the first season are repeated in the second season, it's not as good as the first season. So in that way, it doesn't stand up to the first season. Today in this video, I'll be ranking all the 8 episodes of Love, Death and Robots from worst to best. So according to me, the uh, worst episode in Love, Deaths and Robots Volume 2 was Automatic Customer Service. Uh, but in certain ways, I like the episode. And the episode had an interesting concept of ordinary household appliances, which is powered by AI rebelling against humans. So it also had a good relationship between an old woman and a old man, and it also has death. So it has love in a platonic sense. It had uh, death, but in this it's actually a vacuum cleaner that's dying, and in a way it had robots. So as you guess, the robot is actually the vacuum cleaner, and it's actually the antithesis of Zima Blue from the previous season or the previous volume. Episode is taken in a very Pixar-like manner. That's why it's far in the list. Number 7, we have All Through the House. So this episode is an episode which I liked. It's an episode about Santa Claus. So we all have this fantastic image of Santa Claus. So how Santa Claus would look, and here it's a very different vision of Santa Claus, and that's what makes this episode superior to the other episode. It in a way scares you. It takes out your childhood fantasies and puts it in a different place, and it's a happy episode from one sense. It's not a clear cut horror episode, but the problem with this episode is there is no love. Of course there is a love in another sense, like the love Santa Claus has for the children, but there is no death and robots in this episode. Of course there is a monster. Okay, now let's come to the sixth rank. Rank I would give to Life Hutch. So here again it's the same concept, man versus machine. So a space traveler is caught up in a planet or a moon. I didn't figure it out, and his spacesuit lacks oxygen, so he runs into a temporary shelter, and there he has a fight with a machine, a helper, an attendant robot, and this story goes forward how he survives with this machine. And in a way it's interesting, but it's just how he survives while fighting with a robot. So it doesn't go beyond it. So that's why this episode is far back in the list. For number 5, we have this episode called Ice. So Ice is a special kind of episode. It has a different kind of animation, not a Pixar type animation. So it's a little higher than Automatic Customer Service. And this episode is about a race, and you have humans who are genetically superior than other humans, maybe because a technology that could have elevated their genes. So these superior human beings have an edge over the human beings who have not had this genetical transformation or gone over a evolutionary flux. And because of this, one particular character feels lonely, and how he takes part in a race and creates an identity for himself is the story. So its animation is very good, and this episode has that famous whale scene which you saw in the trailer of Love, Death and Robots Volume 2. And For number 4, we have tall grass. So there is a special thing in this episode. So this episode actually happens in the Victorian era. You have that feeling of Victorian era. Of course, there are no robots. There is no love, and death exists in a strange manner. And it's a full and full horror episode. So this is the scariest episode in the season. Tall grass. So what is beyond the tall grass? The creatures beyond the tall grass. Are they zombies? And it gives a sense of a Victorian horror story. So that's what I liked about this episode. Uh, and this episode has another beautiful thing, and it looks like a watercolor. Everything looks as if it's done by watercolor. So it gives a feeling of loving Vincent and movies like that. So that's why I like this episode. Now we'll come to the great or better episodes of Love, Death and Robots Volume 2. So the problem with this season is all these stories were average stories. It did not go cross the line to be called a great animated short. But these three shots which I'm going to talk about now actually in a way crossed the line, and actually you can call them great in some ways. So on third spot we have Snow in the Desert, and it's shown in a very realistic manner. Animation is hyper real kind of animation, and it has love, it has death, and it has robots, and it in a way justifies the title. And this is a kind of survival thriller, and this character called Snow, he has something special about him, and people want his body for it, and how he discovers himself, how he finds love is the rest of the story. And now we come to the second rank. For the second rank, it's none other than the Drowned Giant. So it's a very very simple animated shot, the Drowned Giant. It gives us the reminiscence of Gulliver's Travels. A giant man is swept ashore in the modern era, and we feel like Lilliputians in some ways. But this episode explores a lot of existential concepts. What is life? What is it to be alive? Who is alive and who is not alive? If the giant that is swept ashore seems more alive than the actual human beings who are taking selfies with the giant, and going about with their normal vocation. So this giant, even though he is dead, has an identity greater than these people who live mundane lives, who see this giant only as a tourist attraction. And that's why this episode stands out. That's why I gave this episode number 2 position. And for the number 1 episode, it goes to Pop Squad. And this episode is in a way very realistic. It has love, it has robots, it has death. And death in this episode is very painful, but at the same time it teaches some morals to the hero, and the hero has to do something really bad because of his identity. So we have a dystopian world where people are not allowed to have children, and there are these outlaws who actually have children and stay separate from the society, and there's this police whose job is to kill children and kill those people who have children. So that's what makes this episode very strange, and it asks lots of deep moral questions about life, and what if it was immoral not to kill a child? Would you still do it? And there's this idea of immoral ethics that was brought out by Slavoj Zizek. So what if something is illegal but according to your high ethics, you feel that that should be legal. You need to cross that line. You need to act immoral in order to be ethical. So thank you. That was my list.